If someone asks me, like, what's the first thing that springs to mind when mention the name Owen Jones, and usually it's blood clot idiot boy. Yeah, that's usually what springs to my mind when I hear someone uttering his legal name. Owen seems to be like trying to be funny recently in his articles. I'm not having that. No. Owen doesn't make the jokes. Owen is the joke. And I am going to make sure that the balance of the universe is maintained as such. So, Owen writes, it's time we stop persecuting Britain's real strugglers, the privately educated. It's a joke, you see. Because, of course, when it comes to comedy, you punch up. That's right. And you know, what's the easiest target to sort of make fun of? Well, it's the upper classes, I suppose. The privately educated. Apparently it's a sin to be privately educated. No, you're better off being in a state-run school, getting the worst education you could possibly imagine. That is the way it should happen. Full disclosure, I went to a private school when I was younger. It was a special needs school for dum-dums, like myself. Full of mental kids. Everyone was mental at my special needs school. But didn't go for long, and then, did the rest of my time, my GCSEs and fucking age of like fucking, I don't know, 10 upwards, and when I was primary school, it was all state bullshit. And, I guess it didn't do me any harm. Didn't really do me any good, neither. Probably the same as most people, But apparently wanting the best for your children and paying for education is, is fair game to have the piss ripped out of you. Now, bearing in mind that probably the majority of the people that Owen works with at The Guardian are probably privately educated, upper middle class twits anyway. But they're the worst ones. The upper classes, I'm fine with. The working classes, I'm fine with. Your average middle class, cool. But the upper middle class, something really pisses me off about them. And then Owen's class, which is like, I'm working class, but I'm not. I'm really a pretentious knob cheese class. I don't know what that is. It's like a subdivision of working class, maybe, or middle class. I'm not really sure about Owen's credentials as a voice for the working man. I don't really know. Don't really know how to categorize him. Just a silly little goblin, I suppose. Anyway, claims of social engineering at Oxbridge are our elites reacting to criticism in the time-honoured way by playing the victim. Well, as you represent the politics of the victims, then maybe they should start voting for your lot, Owen, I suppose. I don't know. The plight of the privately educated in Britain is now, apparently, akin to the plight of the Jews under Adolf Hitler's genocidal regime. Now, Owen, let's remind yourselves that it's a very sticky, icky path when, when you have a group of people that apparently, have the upper hand or are in charge of a lot of finances, doing well, wealthy, and then we start saying that they are responsible for all the problems. They are oppressing everyone else. They are taking all the money. That is what happened to the Jews. And that's probably what you're going to say, which is interesting. Stare and bafflement all you like, but this was the claim splashed on the front page of the Times on Saturday of the head of Stowe School, a mediocre Buckinghamshire private school. A mediocre private school. Not even a good one. What a bollocks. Who argued that questioning the disproportionate numbers of privately educated people in positions of power was akin to the conspiratorial language of the protocols of the Elders of Zion and the language of Hitler and his henchmen. Do you have concerns about the privileged buying their children places at the top table? Well, it's kind of what they said about the Jews. that those from less privileged backgrounds are drastically underrepresented in key British institutions, and think widening educational access is fundamentally a good thing, I'm sorry to report that you are not. I'm sorry to report that you are a Nazi. Well, you see, Owen, you should read the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. A hell of a lot of modern conspiracy theories are based on the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, and a lot of that lovely mural that was drawn in Islington, Jeremy Corbyn's borough, representing the global banking elites with their big Jew noses. That's based on the Elders of Zion, for sure. Something you should read. You might understand all the anti-Semitism that surrounds your crew, I suppose. That'd be a good idea for you. I mean, I haven't read this Times piece. It is a story that future historians may regard as fascinating insight into Britain's crumbling social order. When those with wealth and power fear that the privilege is even mildly challenged, they invariably clothe themselves in the garbs of victimhood. The crux of the Times splash was the fear that Oxbridge was discriminating against the privately educated in favour of state school pupils, constituting social engineering. Let's leave aside the fact that private education is the most striking example of social engineering in our society. Private education is the most striking example of social engineering in our society. Do you mean that wanting a better education might be social engineering? Yes, it might be. Yes. So, is it bad that people would want to pay for their education because it's better? Because the fact is that state-run education is crap. It's crap. Now, my mother, who is a conservative woman, but also taught in state schools her entire life, does not like me speaking badly about state schools because she believes in them, state education. Me, on the other hand, I think they're a load of shit. So, sorry, Mum. Sorry about that. But, so what? The fact is that, maybe you should think about this, that private schools give you better opportunities. Now, there's a difference, because he's saying privately educated. See, we have public schools and we have private schools. They're different. Yeah. In case you're one of those Americans, your public schools are our state schools, but you have private schools as well. We have private schools, but private schools and public schools are sort of similar. You pay for them, but public schools are generally where the, sort of elite class go to, and like your Eatons in Harrow, where you hobnob with other people whose daddies are rich and own BP and Toyota or whatever it is, and then you just get a job at the end of it because everyone's rich and everyone knows each other. That's sort of public schools, and then you get private schools, which are a bit different. There's many different types of private schools. I'd say not all of them are those sort of places that sort of catapult you into a position of power because you went to school with someone. They sort of just give you a better education because you get what you fucking pay for. And if you pay nothing, which is state schools, well, obviously you pay your taxes. But, generally, state schools are rubbish. So why aren't you talking about why are state schools crap and where's the money going to come from? How about that? But, okay. So the line of argument here is one I'm long familiar with. When I was at Oxford, Owen Jones went to Oxford. Wow, their standards have fucking slipped. I vividly recall a private school student claiming that state school alumni, such as myself, only got accepted because of preferential quotas. Well, judging by all the preferential quotas that actually exist at the moment, he might have a point, and it might be true, because we keep hearing about this kind of thing. They were in America that they were actively discriminate against Asian students because they're too good. About an overrepresentation. Some groups are underrepresented, but Asians were overrepresented. Apparently it doesn't work all the time. Apparently diversity isn't that important. If there's you need to have just the right amount. When there's too many of them, there's a problem. It's like, well, there's too many of you. We want lots of Asian faces, but not that many. Too many. So we're going to make it harder for you to get in because you're too good at what you do. We're going to punish you for being excellent. Isn't that great? We can be punished for being great, isn't it? Yeah. You did really well, so I'm going to give you an F. Why? Because your eyes are funny. That's good, isn't it? Nothing racist about any of that sort of stuff. That's great, isn't it? What a wonderful world we live in. Sadly, the Times opted to fuel the baseless insecurities of its disproportionately privileged readers. Not like Guardian readers, of course. They are all salt of the earth coal miners and factory workers when you read the Guardian. You always see that. Have you ever been in a work van? Say it's a plasterer, or a plumber. There's always a copy of the Guardian, isn't there? Isn't there? When you get in the work van, there's fucking paint and shit everywhere, like blasting out fucking Kisstory, blasting out the Kisstory on the fucking radio box, and there's a copy of the Guardian, isn't there? Always sat there, a copy of the Guardian in the work van. That's what happens in it. Every time I'm in a work van, I'm like, typical, copy of the Guardian. Readers, that rather than balancing absurd claims with facts that state school students actually do better at university than their privately educated counterparts, that while only 7% of the nation's children attend private schools, 41.8% of Oxford students hail from this background, and that less than 40% are comprehensively educated compared to 90% of the wider population, or that Oxbridge recruits more students from 8 private schools than nearly 3,000 state schools put together. Well, there's a lot of facts and figures you've thrown in there that I can't be bothered to verify or fucking debunk. But I'll just say, whatever, Owen. That the Times appears to be taking up the cause of Britain's apparently victimised private schools. A few weeks ago, the newspaper printed a front page falsely claiming these institutions saved the taxpayers £20 billion, in itself interesting. A recent editorial extolled their virtues, fearing that a Jeremy Corbyn-led government threatened them and warning them that he would be wise to leave well alone. Britain's privileged elites fear they are on the brink of social revolution. Rich prepare to flee Corbyn's Britain as Tory desert PM, screeched the front page of yesterday's Sunday Times, warning of a Corbageddon if these would-be refugees face persecution of a more progressive tax system. Yes, well, we know what your tax system, Corbyn, the tax system that you want, and it is called robbery. It's called theft. It's just downright theft. At the moment, if you reach the £50,000 mark, you give 50% of your tax away. No, that's retarded enough. But you want to make it more retarded. Your little boy's come in. He can't use his legs. So you want to chop his legs off, and then chop his arms off, and glue his disabled legs to where his arms once were. Is what you want to do. My inbox is currently being bombarded with press releases and titles such as "Can investors Corbyn-proof their portfolio?" and the media outlets offer advice to the wealthy of how to protect your cash from Corbyn. Yes, that's right. Because when you get rich, you don't want to get rich for fucking nutters to take away your money. That's one of the rules of life. Those who fear that the privilege is being eroded have long claimed victimhood. As the adage goes, when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. No, oppression feels like oppression. Equality is a totally different matter. Your version of equality is very subjective and also kind of twisted. Twisted and warped is what I'd call it. Male chauvinists, angered by women's rights, froth at the mouth about feminazis, while opponents of the struggles of black people or LGBTQ people for equality tend to portray these demands as infringements on the rights of straight white men. Owen, You're just doing what you always do, just using this brush and painting every argument with the same one. Every concern, you're just like this, just painting them all with the same brush. This is all you do. This is all you do with your baseless. I mean, for once you've thrown in some percentages and facts that looks like, but it's so, you've said it so quick. It's like that state school students actually do better in universities than their privately educated counterparts. That while only 7% of the nation's children attend private schools, 41% of Oxford students hail from this background, and less than 40% of comprehensively educated, 90%. And then you're done with facts and figures, and then you just go back to I was going to paint everyone with the same brush, you know. Oh, well, you don't like that? Oh, you're probably a nut. You're probably anti-gay. What's that? Oh, you're anti-black. These demands as infringements on the rights of straight white men. All right. Well, I don't, just give us a couple of examples, Owen. Go on. Throw up a pie chart or something. We like pie charts. But as far as Britain's elites are concerned, the shift from triumphalism to victimhood has only just begun, and it promises to be fascinating. After the rise of Thatcherism, the smashing of the trade unions, and the post-Cold War sense that any alternative to free market capitalism was permanently discredited, you can see why the wealthy felt drunk on the sense of eternal victory. Well, Owen, you know, Thatcher closed the coal mines is because, apart from the real reason she did it, but also, doesn't coal poison the fucking atmosphere? Coal's bad for the climate, and you're supposed to be against climate change. You're supposed to be fighting climate change, Owen. And the coal mines, the coal isn't good for the climate, so you should praise that. You know, you shouldn't be championing the rights of coal miners because they were destroying the ozone layer and shit. Owen, you should be shitting on them, shouldn't you? I don't know. Anyway, for all the well-heeled elites, the 90s and noughties were a non-stop party with no hangover. Even after the financial crash, the fortunes of Britain's 1,000 richest families more than doubled. Fancy that the rest of the world would lose money, and yet the richest people, the 1,000 richest families, fortunes doubled. Why is that? Because they're corrupt. Or maybe they're just better at managing money, and that's why they're rich. Maybe. I don't know. It's a theory of mine. Migrants. Oh, here, Owen has to drop in his points. Migrants, refugees, Muslims, benefit claimants. These all prove to be the principal targets of fury in the aftermath of the crash. It is only relatively recently, on both sides of the Atlantic, that movements with political credibility have emerged to challenge elites intoxicated with triumphalism. They're still at their party. The champagne is still flowing, but it feels like the barbarians are hammering out the doors and the bouncers can only hold them back for so long. Britain's social order is indeed tottering, and a correction is long overdue. But wait for the beneficiaries of the economic policies of the last generation to wail with the injustice of it all, because it's barely even started. Owen Jones is a columnist. That's right. Because if Owen has his way, the redistribution of wealth that he did not rightly earn will be rightly his. And, keep up the good fight, Owen. No one knows when his paper round is going to be over. No one knows when Owen Jones will return from The Guardian from his way over long work experience. I think he went there many years ago and just hasn't returned. Don't think he even gets paid. But, he's just there still. Still writing in crayons. Writing his stuff. I haven't read this to, debunk anything he said, really. Like I said, it's just one of my hobbies, is to ridicule him. He was trying to be kind of funny, but now he's just sounding terrifying. That's Owen Jones talking, saying blah, 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 blah. Trade unions, drunk off power. Fuck the rich. I hate the rich. Why are they rich and I'm not? Anyway, Owen.